Hello, hello. Happy Sunday afternoon. Gonna get to play Magic today. I am CounterTop Commander, and if you're listening in, we play Commander, you know, Magic the Gathering is what we're playing, and we're playing a specific format called Commander. And on Sundays, what I do is I take you all step by step through the process of how to play Magic, and sort of through the lens of Commander, which is a very casual format, or it's intended to be. It originally was intended to be a very casual format, so it's about having fun and hanging out with friends and doing something ridiculous with the cards that you own. Especially since a lot of the ways that Commander is set up is meant to encourage you having really good cards, but I mean, where you can use really good cards that you may not have a bunch of. In any case, what we're sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Okay, so on Sundays, that's what we do. On Wednesday and Thursday evening, I try to play just a game of whatever I want to play using whatever decks I have on hand. I have a lot of Commander decks, so I've been doing a bunch of different types of things. You can tune in to watch me then just kind of create chaos and confusion as I pretend to know how to play. But let's go ahead and just dig straight into playing Magic with the decks that we have in front of us. We have 4 different decks. These are specifically kind of designed by me to be played by casual people who don't really play Magic and want to use it more as a board game, and for people who are learning how to play. So we're going to be doing each of these are what's called monocolored, which means they only use one color of Magic. There's 5 different colors, and we're going to be using 3 different ones. So the 5 different colors are white, blue, red, green, and black. We are going to be using green, black, and blue today. Each of those colors have kind of their own thing that they do, their different strengths and weaknesses. And then in combination, you can do up to all 5 colors of Magic in one single deck, or you could do 0 colors of Magic. You can do a colorless deck, and I have a couple of colorless decks actually. So, kind of taking a look at the one that's right before us is Gargus, Vicious Watcher. So let's go ahead and bring him up real quick. Give me just 1 second. I can bring it up on screen so we can take a look at him. Okay, so this card is a legendary creature. You can kind of see that in the middle of the card right here. And let's go ahead and go kind of slowly through what is on this card. Oh wow, it's really, really bright. Hang on just a second. I just noticed that my hands are just blinding white. That looks a little bit better. Okay. So, if we take a look at this card, then the very top left corner, you can see its name, Gargus, Vicious Watcher. And then right next to it, you have the converted mana, or the mana cost. So you can see a number 3 and then 3 green symbols. That just means that when you want to play this card, you have to pay a cost, and pretty much every card comes with some kind of cost attached to it. In this case, it's this mana cost right here, and cards could have additional costs written on it in addition to the mana that you have to pay to be able to cast it. So to be able to cast this one, we need 3 green mana, and then that number 3, that's a grayish color. That just means we can use any color of mana to pay for that part of the cost. So it's 3 colorless and 3 green to make 6 mana total. Moving down past the nice artwork here, we have the legendary creature Hydra. So this deck in particular is a Hydra tribal deck, which means that we're going to try to be focusing heavily on making use of Hydras as creatures and try to get them to kind of those cards all work together to do cool things. Each of these decks are actually tribal decks. We have zombies, elves, and sphinxes today. Then, if we move down past the well, we have the the creature type or the card there. Well, first it's card types and like super types, and then a creature type after that. So legendary creature Hydra. Then that's telling you what kind of a card it is. We have a set symbol there, M20. That's a set that this came out of. And then moving down, we have the rules text box, which tells you what the card does. In this case, this creature has an ability called Vigilance, which we will get to once we start talking more about combat. After that, we have Hydra spells you cast cost 4 less to cast. So when we have this guy out, when we've already played him and he's sitting out helping defend us, then he makes all of our other Hydra cards cost less to be able to use. And then finally, we have this other much longer ability. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos Vicious Watcher fights up to one target creature you don't control. So essentially, if somebody tries to target the things that we have, target any of our creatures to, say, destroy them or to maybe take control of them or something like that, what's going to happen is, or even just to make it less strong, maybe. Gargos is going to go, if you're going to do that, then I'm going to do something in retaliation. So we get essentially a retaliation effect after that. And again, we'll go more into that as we get to it. I don't want to focus too heavily on it right now because we could get kind of lost in the weeds. So after that, we go down to the power and toughness box down here. It's at the very bottom right corner, and it says 8-7. So all that means is that the first number is the power of the card, and the second number is the toughness of the card. So it's how much damage it can deal in a turn versus how much damage it can take in a turn. So Gargos, as a 6-cost creature, is a pretty heavy hitter, and that's kind of the theme of this particular deck. This is what I've called a big tribe, meaning that it has big creatures that take a while to get out, but once you get them out, they're really, really strong. So let's go ahead, and after knowing this and knowing that we have a Hydra deck, and that's what we're going to focus on, let's go ahead and take a look at our first hand. And we see here we have essentially 2 Hydras, a couple of pump spells, and then our ramp cards down here. So we're really looking for, when you start playing Magic, you shuffle your deck, you draw 7 cards, and then out of those 7 cards, you want to decide whether or not that hand is good enough. And if it isn't good enough, then you want to mulligan. In this case, we're going to try out this hand and see how well it does. And that's mainly because of this right here. Normally, like Gargos is a 6-cost card, so we want to get to 6 mana at some point. So looking at this hand right here, we have essentially 3 lands in our hand right now. So we're going to be able to play a forest, and on our first turn, we'll be able to enchant it with this wild growth so that it taps for 2 mana, and then we'll use those 2 mana on our second turn to play Nature's Lore, which will get us a 3rd mana. So we'll be halfway there, halfway to Gargos on our second turn. That's really good, and in the meantime, if in case something bad happens, we don't draw enough land or we don't do something else, then what we'll do is we still have some cards to do stuff with. So we're not necessarily just sitting there and hoping that maybe someday we'll be able to survive. This is a decent hand. It's not an amazing hand. It's not a perfect hand, but it's good enough to go ahead and play. So let's go ahead and take our first turn with this deck. And we will get to the other decks here in a little bit. As we go, we'll introduce each one and kind of talk about what they do. In this case, Gargos is just a really strong, beefy guy, and we're going to try to take advantage of his mechanic to fight other creatures and try to take control of the board, essentially. So on your first turn, when you're playing against more than one enemy, if you're going first, you get to draw a card. Normal rules of Magic, meaning that Magic was initially designed to have just one-on-one, and so when you're one-on-one, you won't draw a card on your first turn, but because we're against multiple opponents, we get to draw a card. So our first card is Vivian Reed, which is a Planeswalker, 5 cost, and it has some stuff to it that is good, but we do ultimately want to see more land if we can. So this gal is going to take a while to get out, but that's okay. Like I said, we still have some stuff to do, so we will play our forest, then we will add. So each turn, sorry, I should go back before we draw. So turn structure for Magic goes like this. You start your turn by untapping everything you have. Tapping is just representing, is an action, a player action that represents that something has given up all its energy for that round of turns. So when it gets back to your turn, you untap all of your stuff, representing that it's regaining energy to be able to do things. So once you do your untap, then there'll be a upkeep step, which is just kind of a step to whenever we want something to happen at the very beginning of a turn, it'll happen during the upkeep. So untapping always happens first before anything else. Nothing else can happen. Pretty much. You always get to do your untap before anybody can play any spells or activate any abilities or do anything. So we do untap, then upkeep. During the upkeep is when other stuff can happen. Like I said, kind of stuff that you want to happen at the beginning of the turn. And then after that, we go to our draw step. So untap, upkeep, we don't have any either for any of those. So we'll go ahead and go to our draw step. We'll draw Vivian Reed. So then after we draw that card, we go into our what's known as the main phase. The main phase is where we can start, essentially we can start playing lands and playing spells that are sorcery speed, or anything that can't be done instantly has to be done during the main phase. So that includes playing a land. So we'll go ahead and play a land for the turn. And then we will also play this card called Wild Growth. It costs 1 green mana, so we will tap this forest. Like I said, tapping represents using all of your energy, or it using all of its energy for the round of turns. This card only costs 1 green mana, so we can play it. It is an enchantment aura with enchant land, so we are going to enchant our own land. Basically, we're just giving it sort of magical power to do extra stuff. And it makes it so that whenever the enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green mana. So now this forest overproduces energy, essentially. And since that's all we can do for this turn, normally if we'd have creatures out, then we could talk about going into combat. Because after your main phase is a combat phase, and then after the combat phase, you can go into another main phase if you want to, and then after that is the end of the turn. So we don't have anything else to do this turn, so we're going to go ahead and pass to the next player. So our next player is Ghoul-Caller Gissa. She is a 5-cost, 3/4 creature, so she's a little overcosted for her power and toughness. She is a legendary creature who is a human wizard. So we have a zombie deck headed up by a human, but that's because she is a necromancer. She has pay 1 black mana, tap her, sacrifice another creature. So that's all part of the cost of activating her ability is a black mana, using up all of her energy, and sacrificing another creature. Once you do all of that, you put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. So whatever we get rid of, we essentially cut it up into parts and make a bunch of zombies from it. She's really, really good necromancer. So if we could arguably essentially take a zombie, sacrifice it, and make it into 2 new zombies. So kind of making something out of nothing is what Ghoul-Caller Gissa is really good at. So we'll play her in a little while. Let's go ahead and take a look at our hand. And our hand, we're starting with 3 swamps. So swamps produce black mana. You can see this skull symbol right here is our black mana symbol. And then we have a couple of zombies in our hand already. We have a planeswalker and we have an instant. So with this stuff in hand, we have a really cool zombie. The reason that I'm keeping this hand is because these are all pretty good cards. We just need 1 more swamp and we can get up to this Liliana of the Dark Realms card, which will be great. And then Shepherd of Rot has tap, each player loses 1 life for each zombie in play. So if we have a bunch of zombies out, we can make everybody lose a bunch of life. Now, we don't want to lose all of our life, but the goal is that we're going to try to make other people lose more life than we lose ours. So we're going to hopefully we will be at a higher life total when that happens, so that everybody else loses quicker. So as you can imagine, being a zombie deck, most of our stuff is going to deal something with the graveyard, which is why we have this card called Entomb. Search your library for any card and put it into your graveyard. So essentially, we'll look for something really good, we'll put it into our graveyard, and then we'll bring it back from the dead. Sound really cool? I think it's cool. I have 2 different zombie decks. That's how, and I keep having to stop myself from making more of them. So let's go ahead. Beginning of the turn is untap, and then after that upkeep, and then we draw a card. So we drew Curse of Disturbance. It's an enchantment. In fact, it's an aura curse. So we enchant a player, and then whenever that player is attacked, whenever that player is attacked, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, and then each opponent attacking that player does the same. So essentially, we can hopefully kind of push other people into creating zombies for us, so then we can make use of it with the Shepherd of Rot card in our hand. So let's go ahead and start off. We will play a swamp. We don't really have too much else that we want to do. We have a card that we could play. We could play Entomb right now, but I think what we want to do is we want to hold off a little bit and see what other people do before we make that choice. Before we make a choice, so we don't want to make the wrong choice now based on so little information. We don't know what other people's plans are and what they're going to try to accomplish. There's many different ways to win the game of Magic. Most of these decks all of these decks primarily are known as aggro decks. So there's 3 different primary strategies for Magic: aggro, combo, and control. We are all centered very heavily on the aggro portion of it, because the aggro decks try to just aim for attacking and taking down your opponent's life total as quickly as possible. That's our goal. That's how we're going to try to do it, is just by trying to be really quick about getting our opponent's life totals down. And essentially, we are likely going to be sacrificing what's known as tempo to be able to do that. We're going to try to build up tempo where we're dealing more and more and more damage each turn, each subsequent turn, or consecutive turn, I should say. So if we continue over, after we pass the turn, we didn't have anything else to do. We were going to go to our next deck, which is Elves, Tribal Elves. And there's almost no other deck that embodies aggro as well as Elves do. Now, Elf decks can be combo. In this case, we're going to be playing aggro. So the zombie deck was a small tribe. Zombies are 2/2s. We're going to try to make a lot of zombies and then attack with them. The Hydras, they're not going to make many Hydras, but they're going to make big Hydras. Elves are more similar to the zombies. We're going to make a ton of Elves, and they're going to be a lot of low-cost cards, and we'll win through having many more creatures than anybody else. And to help us do that is our commander, Azuri, Renegade Leader. Azuri is a 3-cost 2/2 elf. It has pay 1 1 green mana to regenerate another target elf. So if we have an elf that's going to somebody's trying to kill it, we can regenerate that elf and stop it from dying. And then it also has pay 5 mana, 2 colorless, 3 green, and elf creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until the end of turn. So we can pay mana to make all of our elves stronger. So if we make a bunch of elves and then we make all of those elves really strong, then we'll essentially be winning the game. And that's what we're going to try to do. So looking at our hand here, we are only starting with 2 lands, but we're also starting with an elf that adds mana to our mana pool. We have an elf here that has sacrifice a creature, destroy target creature with flying. So We are worried a little bit about our next deck, which is Sphinxes. They have flying creatures, so in case we need to get rid of something, we have something to get rid of flying creatures here. Then we have 2 spells that destroy an artifact or enchantment. Those are other card types, so lands, creatures, and these are an instant and a sorcery, and then there's artifacts and enchantments. Those are all different card types. So these target specifically trying to destroy artifacts and enchantments so that somebody can't gain a lot of advantage using them. And finally, we have a 4-cost elf that whenever another green creature comes into play under our control, we can make one creature 1 power and toughness stronger. So we have this elf right here adds mana to our mana pool. This is an elf called a mana elf because all it does is it generates mana. So we essentially have 3 mana here, even though we're starting with only 2 land. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first card for the turn. So untap, upkeep. We don't have either of those right now. We will draw a card. Elvish Visionary. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So an elf that draws a card. That's really good. Let's go ahead and go to our main phase. Playing a single forest. You can only play 1 land per turn. So we will tap that forest to add mana to our mana pool. And then we'll use that 1 green mana to play Elvish Mystic so that we can get some of our bigger cards out faster. That's part of being elves, is that we should be able to generate a ton of mana over the course of the game. And hopefully just use that to play a bunch of elves first. So our final deck is Sphinx Tribal. So this is another big tribe. So we have 2 big tribes, 2 small tribes. This other big tribe is led by Unesh, Cryosphinx Sovereign. It is a 6-cost 4/4 legendary Sphinx. It has flying. So flying just means that whenever you're in combat, if you have a creature with flying that attacks, it can't be blocked unless the defending player has a creature with flying. So that's going to be really good for us. It means that if everybody else has non-flying creatures, then we don't have to worry about them trying to stop us from dealing them damage. Now, its other abilities are Sphinx spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, so it's just like Gargus. We can be able to have the ability to reduce the costs of the cards that we play. And then it has a final ability, a much longer ability. Whenever it or another Sphinx enters the battlefield under your control, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So that's the cool thing, is that when you play Sphinxes and you play a bunch of Sphinxes, you can keep drawing more cards. Now, those cards are subject to your opponent's decisions on what to allow you to get, but that won't matter so much. So let's go ahead and look at our hand here. We have 2 islands. Then we have a ramp card to get us to 3 mana. Then at 3 mana, we have Pilgrim's Eye, which is an artifact creature that allows us to look for a land. And then after that, we have a 4-cost Sphinx, a 5-cost card here, an enchantment, and then a 6-cost Sphinx. So we're essentially our game plan here is to play these cards in this order, these 2 into this one, and then at that point we'll have to reassess what we want to do, because we may want to hold on to the cards that we have in our hand. We may want to play other things. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 turns, so let's just hang on and see where we get to. So, especially because we're going to be looking to get to 6 mana so that we can cast our commander. So let's untap, upkeep, draw. We drew a card called Time Warp. 5 mana, sorcery, 3 colorless, 2 blue, and it has target player takes an extra turn after this one. So the Sphinx deck, its strengths lie in having these extra turn cards so that we can essentially gain, a another turn means that we can play an additional land. We can get another full turn of playing cards and stuff like that. That's going to be really advantageous for us later on. And in addition to that, the other thing that we have is a lot of copy effects. We have make a copy of a creature we control. And so Unesh, our commander, cares about when creatures come to play, but a lot of Sphinxes cost a lot of mana to play. So we won't necessarily always be able to play a bunch of Sphinxes in a single turn. So to help with that, we have lower cost spells that create Sphinxes. So after we draw a card, we go to our main phase, and we will play an island and then pass the turn, because our first play will really be next turn when we play a ramp card. And now we are all the way back to the Hydra deck. All right, taking a nice drink there. Okay, so with the Hydras, we remember, our turns always start with untapping everything that we have. So we will untap this forest. We will have an upkeep. We don't have anything during our upkeep, so we will draw a card. And we get Infiltration Lens. So we are looking for more lands. Unfortunately, this was not another land. It is an artifact equipment. So this equipment allows it so that whenever our creatures get blocked, we can draw cards just for the fact that that creature was blocked. So we will continue our plan by tapping this forest, and like I said, now that it's enchanted, it produces 2 mana, allowing us to play Nature's Lore. So Nature's Lore is a 2-cost sorcery, so it has sorceries and instants are cards that have a single effect and then they go away. They don't stay out, they don't keep doing things, they just do one thing one time and that's it. In this case, we search our library for a forest card and put that card into play. So we're going to go ahead and grab a forest real quick. Look at there. We get to put it into play. So a lot of times ramp cards will put lands into play tapped. So you have to be very careful. In this case, Nature's Lore puts it directly into play so that we get another mana to be able to do something. And I think we'll go ahead and do something with it, because I have a feeling we're not going to be seeing another land, unfortunately. I'm hoping that we do, but it's always possible that we won't. So give me a second while I shuffle. I'm going to try to shuffle up a little bit better, see if we can't get another land, since we're having a little bit of trouble seeing that next land. So let me finish up here. The one card that we have in our hand that we can play is the one that we just drew, because Infiltration Lens costs only 1 mana. So we will go ahead and use the remaining mana that we have to play this artifact, Infiltration Lens. So if you can look up here, it only costs 1, and so artifacts are like creatures. They sit out and do have different effects based on costs and different things. In this case, this is an artifact equipment. So as an equipment, it only does something once it's attached to a creature, so we will have to pay a cost to attach this equipment to the creature that we have. So that will come on a later turn. Right now, we're just going to go ahead and pass the turn over to the zombies and let them have their fun. So the zombies are going to untap, upkeep, draw a card. We have another swamp. That's good news. So let's go ahead and play a swamp. Now we have some choices to make. Nobody else really played anything, so we could play Entomb if we wanted to, but I think that we're still kind of stuck in that we want to be sure that the things that we're doing matter a lot. And further our game plan, we don't know yet what Entomb should get, so we're going to hold off on that. Instead, I think we're going to go ahead and pay 2 mana, and we will play this Shepherd of Rot. And the reason I'm doing that is because what I want to do is I want to next turn curse somebody with this Curse of Disturbance so that we can attack with Shepherd of Rot and start getting zombies. Free zombies that we can keep attacking with and make more zombies. So we can't do that unless we have something to attack with. So we're going to go ahead and play Shepherd of Rot now, even though its primary purpose is going to be with causing players to lose life for each zombie that we control. We're at a low risk right now because nobody else has creatures out. So unless every other player plays a creature this next turn, somebody is going to be able to get attacked by Shepherd of Rot, and then after we generate a zombie from there, we can keep generating zombies off of the zombie that we first create. So for now, we will go ahead and hold off, and we're tapped out, so we don't have anything else that we can do. So we're just going to pass to the next turn, and the next player is Elves. So we will untap, upkeep, draw a card. We have another elf that generates mana. Even better. That's what we want to see. So we will play this Reliquary Tower. We will tap to add 1 green mana to our mana pool. We will use that to play Arbor Elf. And then we will also tap this for 1 green mana. We will tap Reliquary Tower for a colorless mana. So I didn't say anything, but I should go and point it out. Forests are known as basic lands, whereas anything with a name like this, Reliquary Tower, is considered a non-basic land. A lot of time, let's see, I don't have another, I want to show something that says basic land. But all of these are old lands, so none of them say basic on them. Forests, islands, swamps, mountains, plains, let me think. Forests, islands, swamps, plains, mountains, all of those are known as the basic lands. You can have any number of them in your deck. Non-basic lands are ones that will not say basic on them. That's how you can tell the difference. And in this case, Reliquary Tower has a neat effect. That is, you have no maximum hand size. So normally 7 cards is the maximum amount you can hold in your hand any given turn, and you have to discard all of the excess cards at the end of your turn. Well, Reliquary Tower stops that from happening. We can essentially ignore that rule having this card out, and it also taps for a colorless mana. So we're going to go ahead and tap both of those for mana and use it to cast Elvish Visionary. So this is the one that when it comes into play, we draw a card. And Voice of the Woods, that's a nice card. Voice of the Woods has tap 5 untapped elves you control, create a 7/7 green elemental creature token with trample. So that's going to be a really good card. We almost have the ability to cast it, and also almost have the ability to activate its ability. We're 3 out of 5 elves. This will be a 4th elf, so we just need one more elf out to be able to activate its effect. So we're doing really good there. Let's go ahead and pass the turn, and we will get back to the Sphinxes and almost finish our second round of turns. So Sphinxes, definitely the same way. They're going to untap, upkeep, draw a card. We have Favorable Winds. Creatures with flying. It's an enchantment. 2 cost. Creatures with flying you control get +1/+1. So that's really good. For now, though, we were going to, during our main phase, play a second island, tap both of those lands for 2 mana, and we will use it to cast Mind Stone. Mind Stone, which is a 2-cost artifact. It taps for 1 colorless mana if we need to, but then it also has a second effect where we can sacrifice it to draw a card. So if we have a bunch of mana and we don't need it, but we do need cards in our hand, we can get rid of the Mind Stone later on to draw that card, essentially replacing itself. So that's all we can do for this turn. We're going to go ahead and pass over to the Hydra deck, and we are off to the races now. We can start going crazy with stuff because everybody's gotten a few turns and they're already playing stuff. So we are going to untap, upkeep, draw a card. It is a forest. That's great. That's exactly what we wanted to see. We're going to go and put this into our hand. We will then play it during our main phase. Then we're going to tap 2 green here and then 2 more green here. Like I said, this enchantment allows us to use this land for 2 mana instead of 1 mana, and we will use that to cast Chameleon Colossus. So, Chameleon Colossus is a 4-cost, 4/4 shapeshifter. So, normally that would indicate that, well, aren't we playing Hydras? Yes, we're playing Hydras. It's just that this Chameleon Colossus as a shapeshifter counts as every creature type. So, it's a Hydra, and it's also a zombie, and an elf, and a sphinx, and a lurgoyf, and everything else. A homunculus, it's everything all at once. So the reason that we're playing this one, though, is because of its other abilities. Its additional ability is protection from black. So being protected from black means that it can't be damaged by, blocked by, enchanted by, anything, as long as it's black. If the source of it was black, it can't affect Chameleon Colossus. So that means that the zombie deck will never have the ability to take out this card directly. It's going to have to use some kind of indirect means to get rid of it, or something that isn't a black card. So this means that this Chameleon Colossus will be able to block it'll block however strong of a zombie the zombie deck can create. It won't matter. Chameleon Colossus can take it on. The other reason is that as a 4/4 creature, none of the elves can actually get through Chameleon Colossus either. So that's going to be really good news for us. After tapping all of our mana, we are going to go ahead and pass to the next turn. And the zombies, as I predicted, not everybody was able to get a creature out. So it looks like the Sphinxes are going to be the deck we are going to, an opponent that we are going to target with our first attack. So to begin our turn, again, untap, upkeep, draw a card. We got a swamp. That's nice. That means that we will on turn 5 be able to play Ghoul Caller Gissa. So we will play a swamp, tap 3 mana, and we are going to enchant a player with Curse of Disturbance. We are going to enchant the Sphinx deck with Curse of Disturbance. So now, after our main phase, we're going to get to our first combat. And during our first combat, we will declare Shepherd of Rot as an attacker against the Sphinx deck. And the moment we do that, we get, let's see, let me make sure. Yeah, we just get to create a zombie. So we have a 2/2 zombie for free. And that means that, let's go ahead and bring up our life totals. So the zombies attacked, let's see, crap. The Sphinxes are going to lose 1 life because they cannot block the zombie the Shepherd of Rot that we attacked with. They don't have anything to block with. If you have creatures out, then you can decide to block if you want to. The Sphinxes, unfortunately, cannot, so they have to take that damage. So now we have our free little zombie, and that zombie will be able to, like I said, we'll be able to use it against, or use it to block elves if we need to, but we won't be able to do anything about Chameleon Colossus. So after that, we will pass the turn over to the elf deck. And the elves are going to keep their plan. We have a really good plan going here. So we're going to untap all of our cards. We will draw a card. It is Beast Whisperer. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. This is really, really good. So in Magic, one of the core tenets of playing and building a deck is having card draw. So we are essentially, right, before we drew this card, let's say we didn't have it. So untap, upkeep, say we drew a different card. That one card that we drew is against all the other decks. So we have 3 opponents. We are drawing 1 card to their collective 3. If we can outdraw our opponents, then that will put us in a better strategic position than the individual positions that they have. And that's because the more cards you have, the more opportunity you have. That if you have more cards, then each of those cards represents an individual opportunity. And if they have only 1 opportunity and we have 6 opportunities, then we're going to it's more likely that we will win the game. So having this card is really important, and we're going to go ahead and play it right now because it's something that we really need to get out for the future. The sooner we get this out and the more cards we draw off of it, the better position we'll be in. So we'll go ahead and play Beast Whisperer, and that was these 2 cards add a mana. These 2 cards add 2 more mana. Beast Whisperer is a 4-cost 2/3 creature. So now we can utilize it in the upcoming turns, assuming nobody destroys it. Which may not be necessarily something that we can always hinge on, but it's always going to be better for us to risk that and play it right now. Now, something that we could do, we have the opportunity, we can attack with Elvish Visionary to get ourselves our own zombie, and actually, that might not be a bad idea because, well, no, because the zombie deck will still get a zombie out of it, so, I don't think there's enough advantage. There is some advantage because we could use it to block zombies and potentially kill another zombie, but I don't know if that's quite accurate enough. So we will pass the turn over to the Sphinx deck, who will untap, draw a card, and we got Walk the Aeons, which is another target player takes an extra turn after this one. So we have 2 different gain an extra turn cards. That's really good. Now we just need to get to those cards. So let's go ahead, and during our main phase, we will add 3 mana to our mana pool, and we will use that to cast Pilgrim's Eye. And with Pilgrim's Eye, we will search our it's a 3-cost 1/1 artifact creature that is a Thopter, and it has flying. So we can, with this flying creature, we could block other flying creatures. Nobody else has a flying creature, so we're not going to be too worried about that. But it does mean that we now have a blocker. We can take on a creature now with our Pilgrim's Eye. So with its ability, when it comes into play, we find ourselves a basic land, reveal it, and put it into our hand. But we're just going to go ahead and immediately play that land because we did not draw a land this turn, so we are a little behind. The Elf deck has 4 mana, and it only has 2 lands, so we are definitely behind. Let's see. Let us shuffle just a little bit, and then we will pass the turn. That's all we can do for this turn. And let's see. Almost there. I just want to be thorough is all. We're not in too much of a rush. So let's go ahead and cut that. You should always offer your opponent to cut your deck. It is actually part of the rules that your opponent should be able to cut your deck, and they get to choose what cutting your deck means. They could reshuffle it if they so choose. Just let them know if you're sensitive about other people handling the cards that you have. Just let them know that you are, and to be careful. But it is kind of part of the rules. So going over to the Hydras, we untap, upkeep, draw a card, and Vastwood Hydra. So we were really looking for another land this turn, but that's okay. We do still have a strong creature. This creature is a Hydra that allows you to distribute its... So it enters with a +1/+1 counter on it, and then when it dies, we can distribute those +1/+1 counters onto any number of creatures that we control. So we can make something else bigger by having it die. Now, let's see. What else can we do this turn? I think that we have a really good position here. We have a really strong creature, and we can make it stronger and better. So let's go ahead and do that. We will add 1 green mana to our mana pool and cast Rancor, enchanting our Chameleon Colossus. Rancor is an enchant creature. It's an enchantment aura with enchant creature, and that enchanted creature gains +2/+0 and trample. And then whenever Rancor, this card, this enchantment, goes into the graveyard, it returns for free back to our hand, so we can keep reusing it. And then after we do that, we are going to add 2 mana to our mana pool using this card, this land right here, to put Infiltration Lens onto Chameleon Colossus. Now, that means that it not only is enchanted, but it also carries an equipment. And that equipment is going to let us draw 2 cards. Like I said, with the elves, drawing cards is very important. So we're going to go ahead and aim for drawing cards. Now, looking around, we have to make a decision about who we want to attack. I'll give you a second to think about which one would we want to attack at this point, whether it's zombies with the ability to make more zombies, or the elves that already have 4 creatures out, or the Sphinx deck that if we attack, we will get a free zombie with. Okay. So, I would say that at this point, we want to probably attack either the elves or the zombies. And the reason being is not because the Sphinxes have been put down on so much. It's because attacking the Sphinx will get more zombies over to the zombie deck and put them at a better advantage. More zombies, more problems. So instead of that, I think that we want to make a decision between the elves and the zombies. Which one is probably a bigger threat? Which one can we maybe coerce into blocking? Now, looking at it with the Rancor, what Trample does is that normally if we just attacked with this Chameleon Colossus and it was a 4/4, and let's say we attack the zombies and the zombie deck decided to block with their 1 zombie. So the zombie that's blocking is a 2/2. So we do win. We're Chameleon Colossus. Again, let's go ahead and ignore the protection from black. The damage that we deal, all 4 of that damage would go straight over to the zombie, and none of the rest of it would just disappear. Even though we dealt 4 damage and they only had 2 toughness, the other 2 damage from that equation just kind of disappears. It just becomes part of the amount of damage that we deal. With Trample, that 2 damage goes through to the player. So we get to deal more damage that way. Now, let's see. So we just talked about Trample. I think that in this case, we do kind of want to have somebody block, but it's possible that we're not going to be able to convince anybody to block, because the Chameleon Colossus is so big and the trample damage basically means all of the damage goes through anyway. So looking over at the elves, the zombies can't block at all. We have protection from black. It doesn't matter. The elves are the only ones that can block. It's probably unlikely that if we had this Rancor off, if we did not have trample, they might block with Elvish Visionary because they would be blocking all 4 of the damage that we would be able to deal. But the difference between 5 and 6 damage, because the Rancor gives 2 more power than what we normally have, so we are dealing 6 damage. The difference between 5 and 6 damage right now is kind of negligible. There isn't enough difference in it to be worth trying to block 1 of that damage. So most likely what's going to happen is, since we know for sure that we can use Chameleon Colossus to plow into zombies whenever we want to, I think I'm going to go ahead and attack the elves this turn. So the elf deck is going to not block, and they're going to take 6 damage. So let's go ahead and mark that. And now that is our life totals. So after that, we do not have anything else that we can do this turn. We are just going to go ahead and pass over to the zombies again. Oops. So the zombies now can decide what they want to do, because we got the Curse of Disturbance out. We got the zombie attack that we wanted. So let's see. Let's untap all of our stuff. Upkeep, draw a card. We have Grave Spawn Sovereign. Ooh. Oh, that's really good. That's really, really good. Okay, so this is a card that we're going to want to play here soon. It has tap 5 untapped zombies you control. Put target creature card from your graveyard into play under your control. So we can use this zombie to bring back zombies. Really, really good. Looking forward to that. First, though, we're going to play a swamp, and then we are going to tap those 4 to play Vengeful Dead. So, Vengeful Dead has, whenever it or another zombie is put into a graveyard from play, each opponent loses 1 life. So, that's really good for us. The more zombies that die, the better off we are, the better position we're in. Let's see. Let me make sure that this is just attacked and not... Yeah, just attacked. Okay. So, looking at this, I think that what we're going to want to do... Vengeful Dead is also... It's a 4-cost 3/2 zombie with that ability. That's why we played it on this turn, because it's a good 4-cost card to play. We could have also... Actually, do we want to... We could have played Liliana of the Dark Realm. The problem is that Chameleon Colossus would almost assuredly kill it this turn. So instead of doing that, or next turn, they would almost certainly attack it and kill it. So instead of letting it die this turn, we're just going to continue on and hope and find a better point at which we can, threaten to, or basically discourage attacking us. So for now, we are going to go to combat after we cast this card. Let's go ahead and attack with this zombie against the Sphinx deck, which will give us another zombie token right here for free. Now, the Sphinxes need to decide if they are going to block with Pilgrim's Eye or not. And I think that... that's troublesome. I guess, yeah, let's go ahead and block this turn. We will block so we don't take any damage. And then, well, is it, I guess not. No, let's not block. Let's just take the 2 damage and go from there. Let's see. Over here, the Sphinx deck, 2 damage. The 2 damage isn't too much, so I don't know that we can use this Thopter to block something else. Now, here's the other thing. I think that our next step is to do this. Tap Shepherd of Rot to activate its ability. Each player loses 1 life for each zombie in play. So that means that there is 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't forget, Chameleon Colossus also counts as a zombie. So 5 zombies in play. Each player is losing 5 life, including the zombie deck. But that is a ton of damage. We just dealt... let's go and do this. So with the zombie deck, we dealt 2 combat damage, but then we dealt another 20 damage total. That's crazy. That is a lot of damage. It'll bring our game much quicker to a close. Now, our only real threat at this point is the Hydra deck with a Chameleon Colossus, but we should be able to outpace that deck using the zombies that we have here shortly. Let's go ahead and shuffle on over to the Elf deck. There's nothing else that we could do, so we're going to go ahead. In that turn, we go to untap, upkeep, draw a card. We draw Wirewood Lodge. That's nice. This will come in handy later. This is another non-basic land. Let's go ahead and play it. We do want to get it out. Then we are going to pay 5 mana. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana to play Voice of the Woods. And once we do that, once we cast a creature spell, Beast Whisperer draws us a card. Gravity Well. This is really good. This is actually going to be really, really good against the Sphinx deck. Okay, so we have that going for us. Now, next turn, we will be able to activate Voice in the Woods and tap all of our elves down in order to create 7/7 creatures, and we'll be able to create one of those every turn moving forward if we want to. So Once we've done that, we don't really have anything else we want to do, so let's go ahead and pass the turn and just hope, cross our fingers, hope that Voice of the Woods remains on our side and it doesn't get destroyed. So, going over, we have the Hydra deck, or the Sphinx deck, I mean. So we untap, upkeep, draw a card. Warden of Eos Isle, that's another good one actually, because this means that we can reduce the cost of flying creatures and make it easier to cast some of these. So before we do that though, now that we're on 4 mana, I think what we do is we're going to go ahead and cast this Ardent Sphinx, which is a 4-cost Sphinx, and it's a 4-cost 4/3 flying Sphinx with, if we control 3 or more artifacts, then we can essentially remove it from the game and bring it back, and which will be really good once we have Unesh out. And that's what this Warden of Eos Isle is going to do for us later on. But the reason I'm playing this one now is because as a 4/3 creature, we can block those 2/2 zombies and at least block a couple of damage with it. But for now, let's see. What else do we want to do? I guess maybe let's go ahead and look at life totals. We're not really, nobody has a really big creature out, so let's go ahead and attack with Pilgrim's Eye, and we will attack the zombie deck for being a total meanie pants. And deal them 1 damage, so now they're lower on. Then the Hydra deck and Shepherd of Rot won't be quite as good. So let's pass the turn after that, knowing that now we can actually block zombies that come our way, which may not really matter considering Chameleon Colossus and his big booty gonna be trucking through and wrecking people. So untap, upkeep, draw a card. Nature's Way. Target creature you control gains vigilance and trample until end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So we do have that as an option, but I'm thinking we want to, let's go ahead and make Chameleon Colossus even stronger. We're going to pay 3 mana and play Moldervine Cloak, which is another enchantment aura that gives enchanted creature +3/+3. So now our Chameleon Colossus is attacking for 9 trample damage. A ton of trample damage. Let's go ahead and do something about that. We are going to swing for 9 damage over at the zombies. The zombie deck cannot block. They just don't have any ability to, so they are going to take a massive hit now. 9 full damage. Bam, 25 life. So they are way behind now. Now Shepherd of Rot is not doing them any favors to activate, which is essentially part of our goal, is that without them being able to regain that life somehow, they're going to be in really big trouble. So after that, we don't have anything else to play. We're just going to go ahead and pass the turn over to the zombie deck. So the zombies will untap their cards. Let's go ahead and rearrange this a little bit. Draw a card for the turn. Army of the Damned. Well, we're a little bit off from being able to get that, but that's okay. Let's see what we have. We can play a swamp, so we could still play Liliana of the Dark Realm, and I think maybe we want to. I'm trying to think here. Because this does get us another swamp into our hand to be able to do Gravespawn Sovereign, which could be really good. I'm wondering if maybe we want to do that. Let's see, because we can always play, we're going to be able to play Ghoul Caller Gissa whenever we want to now. So let's go ahead, let's go ahead and do that. We will pay 4, we will play this card called the Planeswalker, Liliana of the Dark Realms. It's a 4-cost Planeswalker. It starts with 3 loyalty counters, so let's go ahead and get out a die to mark that. So Planeswalkers work in a way as being almost an additional player working on your side. They come with their own abilities, and they come with their own health, and that health is represented by those loyalty counters. That's why they start with some number, this number in the bottom corner, is representing how much they start off with. Each of their abilities either adds more or subtracts loyalty counters. So they essentially gain life and lose life to use their abilities. You can only you can only use its ability if you have the right number of loyalty counters to activate it. So Liliana of the Dark Realm's third ability is -6 counters, so we can't use it until we get to at least 6 counters on her, loyalty counters. And it's a really strong ability. You get an emblem with swamps you control have tap, add 4 black mana to your mana pool. Instead of tapping for 1, they tap for 4. So we are kind of encouraged to try to get to that point. Now, her other 2 abilities, she has a +1 ability to search our library for a swamp, so that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and activate it. We will add a loyalty counter, search for a swamp, and put it into our hand. We do not have the ability to play that swamp this turn, but we will go ahead and get it so that we can play it next turn. Let's shuffle our library up, and then it has the second ability listed is -3 loyalty counter, so we could have activated that one if we wanted to. Target creature gets +X/+X or -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of swamps you control. So that it can be a really good ability if we could have used it to get rid of the Chameleon Colossus. Unfortunately, we couldn't. So instead, we're going to use the top one so that we can get Gravespawn Sovereign, because next turn we have something really, really sneaky to do. We're going to use Entomb with our last ability, with our last mana here, to be able to get a creature card into our graveyard, and when we actually start our turn, we will play our sixth swamp, play Gravespawn Sovereign, and be able to use Entomb. So we will end up wanting a really good card to be able to bring back from the graveyard. We don't know what that one card is going to be, but for now, we want to be able to activate Shepherd of Rot at some point. So let's go ahead, and we're going to just full on the Chameleon Colossus. So the reason the tapping is important and showing that you're tapping is important is because whenever a creature is tapped, it can't block. So in this case, the Hydra deck only has 1 creature out, but that Chameleon Colossus is tapped. It attacked last turn, so it doesn't have any energy to be able to block now. So now we will be able to attack and not worry about losing any of our creatures. We're just going to be able to deal all the damage straight to. So we have a 3/2, a 2/2, and a 2/2, which means that we're dealing 7 damage to the Hydras. So it's not quite as much as they dealt to us, but it is putting them much lower. So that's good news for us. That means that we are one step closer to where Shepherd of Rot can really power through and deal a lot of damage for us again. For now, we will pass the turn. We don't have anything else that we can do. Well, we do have one other thing, but the fact of the matter is that our Entomb card here can be cast at instant speed, so that we can hold off on playing it until the last possible moment just before our turn is going to happen. For now, though, we are moving over to the Elf deck. The Elves are going to untap, upkeep, draw a card, and it is a forest. That's really good. We were really needing at least another forest, so let's go ahead and play that forest. We are going to, let's go ahead and pay 4 mana right here to play Ivy Lane Denizen. So whenever I cast a creature spell, I draw a card. So here we go, Orin Reef the Vastwood. That is a card. It's a non-basic land. We'll go and put it into our hand. And then from there we have the ability to tap Elves to do something. And in this case, make a 7/7 trampler. And this is going to be sort of a hint on what you can do. We could create a 7/7 right now, and there isn't necessarily anything wrong with that. It's just that we don't know what anybody else is going to do. So because we can activate this ability whenever we want to, There's no restriction on activating this ability. We don't have to. So a lot of times it'll say use it as a sorcery or use only on your turn or something like that. We don't have any of those restrictions. So we can create a 7/7 whenever we want to, which also means, just like the zombie deck is going to wait until the last possible moment, we're going to do the same. We're going to wait until the last possible moment to create a 7/7 so that we have the full amount of information just before we use it. Because if we created a 7/7 right now, it can't attack. And that's kind of the thing that I guess I didn't really explain that explicitly. Creatures coming into play, it have this thing called summoning sickness. They can't attack the turn they come out. Unfortunately, unlike other card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or trading card games, I should say, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Creatures can attack the moment you play them. In Magic, they have to wait. So Ivy-Laden Denizen can't attack this turn. It also can't use any abilities this turn unless something forces it to use an ability, which we will see once we get to the point that we create a 7/7. So we are going to go ahead and pass to Unesh, Cryosphinx Sovereign, and they are going to untap, upkeep, draw a card, and it is not an island, so that is unfortunate. We really are looking for an island at this point. Let's go ahead and we will pay 3 mana and play Warden of Evos Isle. So we're a little behind. We have a lot of cards that are higher cost. We have a 5, a 6, another 5, a 6, and another 6. So we only have Warden of Eos and Favorable Winds that we can cast this turn. We're really needing to be able to cast stuff. So this will at least reduce the cost so that maybe we can play another Sphinx at some point. But really, we're really hurting for our lands, which is unfortunate. We don't necessarily want to be in that position, but it is what it is right now. So we're going to pass the turn. We're not going to do anything. We don't want to anger anybody. We could definitely attack somebody. Well, I guess, let's see. Let's look at the life totals and let's kind of find a way to justify whether or not attacking is smart. So we are actually at the highest life total right now as the Sphinx deck. And we don't have a lot of threats. We see the Elves, they can make 7/7s every turn. Chameleon Colossus is a huge creature. It's going to deal a ton of damage. The zombies as well have really good ability to do a lot of different things. So we don't necessarily want to put ourselves on the bad side of anybody. And we don't necessarily want to play Kingmaker either, because if we play Kingmaker, then it means that we're just that much closer to losing the game. We really don't want to do that. We want to hang back, and until we can get really good cards out, we don't want to draw attention to ourselves. So I think if we were at a lower life total and there was a clear, like, let's say there was a big difference between the Hydra deck and the zombie deck. Say the zombies had 35 life instead of 25 life, then there would be a clear path for choosing them as somebody to attack, because then it would essentially, because we're so much lower on the power struggle level, like we're lower on the totem pole, so to speak. Well, I should say, I guess that doesn't really make sense to say totem pole. We're just lower in the food chain. That's probably better. We're lower in the food chain in the sense that we're weaker than the other players. So because of the struggle between these 3 decks, especially between zombies and the Hydras, if the zombies were really far ahead, then we could take down the zombies to further encourage the Hydra deck to attack the zombies, and the zombies wouldn't necessarily be able to retaliate unless the player was just specifically really gunning, like just gets really upset by getting attacked, because they still have to deal with the Hydras that is sort of become their mortal enemy. So it's sort of enemy of our enemy is our friend type of thing. But because their life totals are so close, then we don't want to necessarily nudge either of them too far down the path of losing the game, because we want them to essentially take out each other, bring each other down so far that there's no way to return back from it. So knowing that and choosing to do that, we are going to go ahead and pass the turn back to the Hydras. Now the Hydras do have a potential problem. The Elf deck is way ahead. The Zombies is much further ahead than they were previously, because Voice in the Woods is a really strong card. So let's untap, upkeep, draw a card. We have Mortal's Resolve. Target creature gets +1/+1 and gains indestructible until end of turn. Okay, so we didn't draw another land. Unfortunate. We're kind of in the same position as the Sphinxes. So we really need to do something about the Elves, and we need to do something about the Zombies. I'm thinking that we want to try to get rid of that Voice in the Woods. That Voice in the Woods being able to create free 7/7s, essentially free because they'll just tap some creatures down to get it. Let's let them make one of those, and then we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and tap 2 mana. We will cast Nature's Way. So target creature you control gains Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So we are going to have it deal all of its damage to Voice in the Woods and kill Voice in the Woods, which, like I said, now that we waited, we can, in response, make a 7/7 elemental with Trample. So let's go ahead, and I need to get out. Sorry, I didn't have this immediately prepared. Let me get the marker here. Let's go ahead, and I don't have a 7/7 elemental, so let's go ahead and draw one. Elemental. Mental. 7/7. Trample. Oh, what's a good? I guess an Angry Tree, maybe. Voice in the Woods. Right. That makes sense. So let's give the tree a face here. This is kind of a hideous face, not gonna lie. Oh god. This is ugly. Oh, geez. Can we even tell this is a tree? Oh god. Looks terrible. That nose. Okay. So we're going to tap 5 creatures down. The Elves are, including Voice in the Woods, in order to get that elemental, and then Voice in the Woods is going to die from that effect. So now our Chameleon Colossus has double trample. Not that that means anything, but now we can maybe safely go ahead and attack the zombies because we also have something to defend with. That's really, really good. Unfortunately, it's not big enough to be able to kill the elemental, but we may have a trick for that. So let's hold off for that. The Elves could end up attacking us out of retaliation, but at least we have a blocker. So we're going to go ahead and attack with Chameleon Colossus against the zombies again. And the zombies being so low, so we could, like I said, Planeswalkers act as an additional player, so we can decide to attack Liliana instead of attacking the zombie player. I think it makes more sense to go ahead and attack the zombies again for 9 damage, because it puts them even further behind with Shepherd of Rot, and it actually puts them in range of being defeated next turn. So, knowing that, let's go ahead and pass the turn to the zombies and see what the zombies can do to see if they can save their life now. Okay, so like I said, at the end of the turn, we're going to wait until the last possible second. Oh, let me take the life total down again. We waited until the last possible second to, at the end of that turn, we're going to use 1 mana to cast Entomb. So we get to search our library for any card and put it into the graveyard. We're going to specifically look for a creature that we can bring back with the creature that's in our hand. So let's go ahead and take a look. What do we have here? Ooh. 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 Oh, I have a very disgusting idea here. It's looking more and more disgusting the more I think about it. Do have this. We could get this, but I think that we want to... We have a lot of different choices. There is a ton... Because the guy that we have is so easily able to get rid of things. Let's see. I think that it makes the most sense to get this one. Fleshbag Marauder. I could go through a bunch of different reasons that we could choose other cards. I think that in this situation, Fleshbag Marauder actually almost certainly gets us out of this position. Out of the position that we're in right now. We'll almost certainly still end up taking damage next turn. Or before we get to our next turn. But even though that may be true, I think that Fleshbag Marauder makes the most sense. And I'll show you why here in a second. Let me finish shuffling real quick. So, cut this. And we will... Oh, no, that's not what I want. Come on. Put that like that. Okay, so Fleshbag Marauder is in our graveyard. Let's take our turn. So we start our turn, untap, upkeep, draw a card. And we have Lord of the Accursed. That's a great card. We're not going to play it quite yet. We are instead going to play our 6th swamp. And we are going to tap all 6 of those in order to cast Gravespawn Sovereign. So we can tap 5 untapped creatures we control to put a creature card from our graveyard into play under our control. Okay, so we're going to wait on that. Actually, yeah, we'll go ahead and play that right now. It may be smarter to wait a turn, but we're going to go to combat first. Before we bring Fleshbag Marauder out and you see what we're doing with that card, we're going to do a few other things. We're going to first attack. We're going to declare a zombie as an attacker against the Sphinx deck, and the reason that we're doing that is because it gets us a free zombie. And then they're going to block that zombie, and they're almost certainly going to block the zombie because it's 2 damage versus 1. So whenever Vengeful Dead or another zombie is put into a graveyard from play, each opponent loses 1 life. So they're going to lose 1 life, and instead of 2 life, we do get everybody to lose a life though. And we're getting down kind of to the wire on some of this. So that's why the Sphinxes are kind of like, we're going to block because it makes the most sense for us. We're already ahead. This puts us even further ahead. Now, after combat is done, we still have these 5 zombies. We're going to activate Liliana of the Dark Realm, search our library for a swamp card, put it into our hand. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. Shuffle up just a little bit. And there we go. We already shuffled a little bit, so we don't need to really shuffle too heavily this time. So we have another swamp to play next turn. Thankfully, because of Liliana of the Dark Realm. Then we still have more to do. We're going to tap 5 zombies, and we're going to bring back Fleshbag Marauder. Now, Fleshbag Marauder is a zombie warrior, in fact. It is a 3-cost, 3/1 zombie, and when it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. So we're going to sacrifice this Fleshbag Marauder as part of its ability. But everybody else needs to also sacrifice a creature. So the Elves are going to sacrifice Elvish Visionary. It goes into the graveyard. The Sphinx deck is going to sacrifice Pilgrim's Eye. And then the Hydra deck has to sacrifice a creature as well, but they only have one creature. They only have Chameleon Colossus. And this effect, protection from black, doesn't protect you from global sacrifice. If this effect had said target player sacrifices target creature or something like that, where it said specifically target creature, then we could be protected from it. But since it's just, okay, everybody sacrifice a creature, whatever you have, that's what you have to sacrifice, the effect still hits this Chameleon Colossus. So the Chameleon Colossus goes into the graveyard. The Rancor, because the creature died, the enchantments that were on that creature die too, but Rancor brings itself back. The equipment, Infiltration Lens, that one stays out. It's just, the creature died and it basically just drops the equipment on the ground. Then Moldavine Cloak is an aura, an enchantment aura, so it dies as well. It goes into the graveyard. But that's not all, because whenever this or another zombie is put into a graveyard from play, each opponent loses 1 life. Well, we sacrificed a zombie, and the Hydra deck sacrificed a zombie as well, because Chameleon Colossus is a zombie. So if we bring this back up, Hydras lose 2 life, the Elves lose 2 life, and the Sphinxes lose 2 life. That's where we're at. That's such a delicious thing. And because of that, next turn we're going to be able to do the same thing all over again. We're going to be able to do that one more time. We're going to keep being able to do that as long as we have Graveborn Sovereign on the battlefield under our control. We can just keep bringing Fleshbag Marauder out. We're going to lose nothing. Everybody else will lose all of their creatures. So everybody else is in a really tough position right now. So let's go ahead and pass the turn and bring it over to the Elves. So the Elves are definitely seeing here the Hydras were really troublesome, but now the zombies are in a really tough position. We really need to do something about them. So here we go. We have these. Let's untap. So we untapped, upkeep, draw a card. Helix Pinnacle, not quite what we're looking for right now. Let's see here. What do we want to do? I think that what we're going to do is, well, we do want to play a creature. So I guess what we're going to do, we're going to go and risk it. We're going to pay 1 green and play, well, let's see what we have. We're going to play or cast Elvish Skysweeper. Whenever we cast a creature spell, we draw a card. Sylvan Messenger, so that's a nice one to have. Let's go ahead and play that. We will tap 3 and 4 in order to cast Sylvan Messenger. Whenever we cast a creature, we draw a card. So Hall of Triumph, that's a nice card. Then Sylvan Messenger happens. It's a 4-cost 2/2 elf with trample, and then it has, whenever it enters the battlefield, to reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all elf cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So here's 4 cards. And there was 1 elf here, so we're going to go ahead and put it into our hand, and the rest are going to the bottom of our library in any order. So that was kind of unfortunate, only getting 1 elf, but that's okay. We have 1 more mana that we can play. So we're going to go ahead and use that mana. And we're going to go ahead and destroy the Curse of Disturbance so that the zombie deck can no longer get free zombies that way. So this destroy target artifact or enchantment, its controller gains 4 life. So the gaining 4 life is unfortunate because it means that the zombie deck is back up to 20. But hopefully, between 3 players, we should be able to take the zombie deck down. I hope. Let's go ahead and play this Oran Reef, the Vastwood, into play tapped. And I think that is it for that part of the turn. I think we want to go to combat next. Oh, wait. Let's see. I forgot about Ivy Lane Denizen. Shouldn't have forgotten about that. And I think just all of its effects are going to go on to the elemental. So Ivy Lane Denizen is a pretty cool card. Whenever another green creature comes into play, into the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So we're going to put, when this green elemental came into play, we got an Ivy Lane Denizen trigger. We just were on the other side of the table when that happened. So we're going to put that +1/+1 counter on the elemental. We played 2 other creatures this turn, so let's go ahead and pump that elemental up even further. And now we have a 10/10 element, 10/10 trampling elemental. So we're going to, let's see, we're going to declare attacks. We're going to say these 2 came into play this turn. Let's go ahead and attack with these 2 creatures as well. So these creatures all aren't attacking. These 3 creatures are. And we're going to say this 10/10 elemental is attacking the zombies. And these 2 are attacking the Liliana. So you can, when you have multiple players and multiple targets for attacking, you can separate your attacks this way. So we're going to, bringing up the life total. The zombies are at 20 life. Now they're going to be at 10 life. And in addition to that, the Liliana is at 5 here. So it's going to take 4 damage and now be at 1 loyalty. So, what did we do there? What do we have selected? Okay, let's bring that back. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, good. I accidentally drug one of my windows. Okay, life total. And let's see. Do we have anything else we can do or want to do? It doesn't look like it. That is all we're going to do for this turn. We're just going to pass. And that means that the Sphinxes are still the highest life total, but they're the furthest behind. The Hydras are a little behind now. They weren't before, and now they are because of losing that Chameleon Colossus. So let's see if they can get back up on their feet, and we'll also see if, let's see if the zombies can do something as well. So we untap, we upkeep, draw a card. It is not a island. That is exceedingly unfortunate. So, because it means that we are trapped. We have a bunch of cards in our hand that are all high-cost cards, and because we're not drawing cards, so because we're not getting the land that we need to play our Sphinx, we can't use that Sphinx to then draw more cards to get more land that we can then play. So we're behind, and we're getting more and more behind, and we can't get... We could arguably get rid of the Mind Stone, but the thing that we're lacking is mana, not creatures. So because we're lacking mana, getting rid of our mana to try to draw into more mana doesn't get us anywhere. So let's go ahead and play the cards that we can. We're going to play Favorable Winds. So that means creatures with flying we control get +1/+1. Let's go ahead and, at this point, who do we have? Let's look at our life totals. So the zombies are really, really low, and we don't really want them to be dealing more, being able to cast more things from the graveyard, because it puts us further and further behind. We don't have very many creatures because we're not playing anything. That's bad. That's very bad. Let me think about this. So what can we do? We could attack the zombie deck. We can deal 8 damage to bring it down to 2 life. But the same thing could be said of the... See, my problem is that the Hydra deck is behind enough that I won't attack them, for sure. But the Elf deck, with a 10/10 elemental and the ability to create more and more elementals, I kind of think that even though I'm sacrificing creatures, I'm still really concerned about the Elves being able to kill off the zombies and then having 0 competition against the rest of us. And I think maybe we need to whittle them down while we still can. So I'm going to go ahead and declare attackers and deal 8 damage to the Elf deck instead. Does this put us on the bad side of the Elves? Yes, absolutely. But we don't really have a... We can't necessarily just let them go, because if we let them go, then they'll just win. So we want to hopefully put ourselves in put them in a position where they could kill us, but then maybe somebody else could kill them. That, like I said, it's kind of between the zombies and the elves right now on who, because the elf deck can definitely kill the zombies next turn. So their next step, the elf deck's next step will be to go, okay, so do we kill the zombies now and get rid of them? Or do we retaliate against the Sphinx deck and potentially give the zombies another turn that they need to take over again? So that's a good position to put the elf deck, the two leading decks into, is put them into a position where they're both kind of they're both drowning and they're trying to shove one of the other down faster to keep afloat longer. But that is the end of our turn. Unfortunately, we don't have anything else we can do. So the Hydra deck gets to go. Let's see what the Hydras can do. Draw a card for the turn. Return to Earth. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. That's a really decent card. Unfortunately, there's not much to do about it. The elemental over there is strong because it's an elemental. So let's see. So we did have a card to do something if that elemental attacked us, but now it's kind of moot because of the Fleshback Marauder, which also means that it may be detrimental to us right now to try to play another creature, because almost certainly the zombie deck is going to do the same thing they just did again. So I think that all we can do is just pass the turn and not really play anything. Sorry, give me a second while I take another drink. Good. Okay. Circling over, we held off with the Hydras. We now are back to the zombies, who get to try to make a choice of what they're going to do. So we're going to untap, upkeep, draw a card, and the card we draw is Custody Lich, I guess I should say. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch, and whenever you become the monarch, target player sacrifices a creature. Okay. Yeah, that seems pretty good. Let's go ahead and play the swamp that we have. Let's consider what we want to do. I think that we really want to play this Lord of the Accursed. Or do we... Actually, now that I say that, I think it's smarter to go ahead and play our commander now. And nobody has played a commander. I'm the first player to play their commander. It may not matter. The reason that I'm playing this instead of the other cards in our hand is because Ghoul-Caller Gissa will allow us to convert our zombie tokens into more zombie tokens, which is a very good news to us. It means that we can keep creating more attackers, essentially. More attackers and more blockers, specifically. We really need to do something to block that elemental, because that has trample, so we have to do something. So let's go ahead and we'll pump Liliana up again. We'll grab another swamp, just because there's no reason not to. It's essentially a free ability. And we're not attacking, so we're not worried about trying to get to 3. We're trying to get as many swamps out of our deck as we possibly can, because we're not drawing swamps, so we're not getting more and more mana. And this means that we can play both of the cards that are in our hand next turn if we really, really want to. But for now, let's go ahead and do this. Shuffle up a bit. And let's see. It also means that we can start thinking about playing Army of the Damned. If we can stabilize a little bit, then we might be able to take over the game with Army of the Damned. Army of the Damned is an 8-cost card that puts 13 zombies into play at once. It's insane. Now, unfortunately, those 13 come into play tapped, so we won't be able to do anything with them on the first turn, but hopefully the following turn we'll be able to do something. So, again, the Graveborn Sovereign can be activated at any time, so we're going to hold off. We're not going to do anything with it. We're just going to hold off with it because I think that there isn't much we can do. Let's see. Yeah, because I think we would just essentially almost kill ourselves. Oh, yeah, the Sphinx deck would almost certainly kill us if we tried to use Shepherd of Rot. We need to get everybody down again. We need to gain life, and we need to bring everybody else down. So let's go and pass the turn. Back over to the Elf deck, and the Elves are going to untap all of this. Now we have a bunch of things that can do stuff this turn. Let's see, let's go and get all of them together, more or less. Okay, untapped, upkeep, draw a card, and it is a forest. That's not too shabby. Let's go and play that forest. Let's see here. So, we have a number of different cool things that we can do. The question is, what among them is the smartest thing to do? I think that I would consider playing Izuri this turn, and maybe we still... Do we have enough mana here? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. 1, 2, 5, 8. So, yeah, we do actually have the ability, if we wanted to. We could do... Let's go and do that. Let's go and... We'll do 3 mana. We'll cast this artifact called Hall of Triumph. It is a legendary artifact, in fact. It's only costs 3 mana, and it has, when it comes into play, choose a color. We're going to choose green. Creatures we control of the chosen color get +1/+1. So that means that these creatures are all stronger. Now let's start off by paying 2 mana here, and we'll use that to play Dwynen's Elite. It's a 2-cost 2/2 elf. So whenever we cast a creature card, we get to draw a card. And Elvish Archdruid, this is what I wanted to see. This is what we're going to play next. Okay, so we have Elvish Archdruid in our hand. And then whenever it enters the battlefield, if we control another elf, then we create a 1/1 elf token. So let's go ahead and find our elves. Where's our elves here? Those are, okay, lots of the things here. So, okay, so we can create an elf warrior, and when we do that, both of these coming into play triggers the Ivy Lane Denizen 2 more times. So that's going to bring our elemental up to 5 is what we're going to do. We're just going to keep putting more counters on it. It makes the most sense still right now. Then after that, we're going to pay 1, 2, 3 mana here. So these guys are all the ones that can't attack this turn. And we are going to cast Elvish Archdruid. Again, we get a Beast Whisperer trigger to draw a card. So Moltali's Acolyte, that's a good card. And then we get an Ivy Lane Denizen, which puts our elemental up even further. Now it's a 13/13, except it's even stronger than that. So it's stronger because of that because of Hall of Triumph. So it's actually a 14/14 trample. Elvish Archdruid. It's a 3-cost 2/2 elf. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. And then it has tap. Add 1 mana to your mana pool for each elf you control. That is a lot of mana. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 elves. A 3-cost card is going to give us 9 mana because of the elves that we have built up. So let's get going. We are going to go ahead and declare attackers. We're going to attack 14 damage over to the zombies. Then we do have some other guys that can attack. They are a little bit stronger because the Hall of Triumph and the Elvish Archdruid. Let's go and look and see who we want to attack, or if we want to split our attacks. So the Hydras are ahead. The Sphinxes are really ahead. And I think maybe the Sphinxes are the ones that we're going to attack for sure. So I think maybe these two, we'll say these two, and the Sphinxes, and then these two at the Hydras, so we can start bringing them down as well. So this is 4 damage, this is another 4 damage, that's 8 damage to the Elves. So, oh crap. Wrong window. Let's look over here. So, oh, not at the Elves. So at the Sphinxes, we're going to deal 8 damage. So that's bringing them down. No. It's bringing them down to 21. And the zombies, we'll get to the zombies for a little bit. Let's go ahead and figure out the damage that we're going to deal. Sylvan Messenger is going to deal 4 damage. And the Elvish Sky Sweeper deals 3 damage. So that's 7 at the Hydras. Now let's see. So the zombies get to do something in response to that 14-14. We need to block enough so that we don't take that. We need to block 9 damage. Let's see. We need to bring the damage from 14 down to 9. So we need to block with enough to do that. So I think Shepherd of Rot has served its purpose long enough, and so has these guys over here. These 2/2 zombies that we have. So this is 5 damage. That's so 14 down to 9. That means we'll be at 1 life. It's all we can really do. But after we declare these as blockers, we're going to tap 5 zombies to bring our Fleshbag Marauder back from the graveyard and have its ability trigger. So now each player has to sacrifice a creature. So the Elves are going to sacrifice their 1/1 elf, and the Sphinxes are going to sacrifice their big creature, this Ardent Sphinx. It's going to go to the graveyard. So that means that we block all the damage, but we'll block all but 9 damage. So we'll be down to 1 life. And then because a zombie died this turn, because the zombie died from Fleshbag Marauder going to the graveyard, that means that the Hydras are going to lose a life, and the Sphinxes are going to lose a life, and the Elves are going to lose a life. And then these 3, after we finally did all of that, these 3 did block the elemental. They take enough damage for all of them to die, so these all go into the graveyard, and that's 3 more zombies that died. So the Hydras lose 3 more life, the Sphinxes lose 3 life, and the Elves lose 3 life. We are down to the wire here. Everybody is really low on life. That's great. That's really good news. It's so even. The goal is not to. My goal is not to make the life totals go down evenly across the board. The goal is just so that everybody has fun. That nobody feels picked on is what I'm trying to get at. We don't want, when you go into these games, you want everybody to kind of have fun. And if one person's getting picked on more than the others, especially undeservedly so, then they're not going to have as good of a time. And ultimately it kind of feels bad, because you do kind of want, not that you want everybody to like you, just that it's sort of nice when it's nicer. It feels better at the end if everybody kind of got to do their own thing. So everybody's kind of getting to do their own thing, and the elf deck has done all of their attacks. That's all they can really do, so they are going to pass the turn. We are a little set back because we can't, with the zombie deck, we don't have enough zombies now to be able to use Graveborn Sovereign, but maybe we can fix that here soon. So let's go and untap, upkeep, draw a card. Finally, that island. That's great, because this means that we're going to go ahead and take an extra turn. The only thing we're going to do is pay this 5 mana. We're going to cast Time Warp. Target player takes an extra turn after this one. We will take an extra turn. Now, the elf deck doesn't have anything to block flying with, so because we have a free turn, let's go ahead and swing for 3 damage at the elf deck, so they lose 3 life. Adjust here, and they are down to 11. That's good for us. Let's take our extra turn, so we untap, upkeep, draw a card. is not another island. That's unfortunate. That's kind of what I was looking for, but it's okay that we didn't get one. Just because we have another gain an extra turn in our hand. So we could do that one more time at least. For now, let's go ahead and we will pay 5 mana and play Unesh Crow Sphinx Sovereign. So normally Unesh costs 6 mana, but our Warden of Evos Isle is actually essentially paying the cost of that one last mana that we needed, which means we have 6 mana essentially to cast a Sphinx spell specifically. So Unesh comes into play, and whenever it comes into play or another Sphinx, we reveal the top 4 cards of our library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, and we choose one pile to go into our hand and the other into our graveyard. So we're going to have the Hydra deck choose which cards that we have, because essentially we're kind of on the down. The zombie deck is on the down as well. It's weak. It's certainly weaker than the elf deck, but the elf deck is definitely in the head, and the Hydras is definitely lower than zombies because they didn't even play a card last turn. They're way behind on mana, just like we are. So we're kind of like kindred spirits right now. So we're going to hopefully we'll have them choose and hope that they don't give us just garbage. So here's the 4 cards that they're going to look at. Let's see. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 more islands. So let's see. This is these are 2 semi-weak Sphinxes. This one makes it so that creature spells cost 1 less for this Sphinx deck. And then we have a land that's really, really good. So this is definitely the highest card in the pile here. And I think that maybe we still want to separate these aggressively, I think. I don't think we want to give the Sphinxes too much of an advantage because of what Mystic Sanctuary can do. Because when it enters the battlefield untapped, you may put target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library, which means that, let's see, let me think about this. Okay. Which means that they can put Time Warp back on top of their library to play. And they're going to be able to play Mystic Sanctuary right now. They haven't played a land this turn, so they can play one this turn. So either they get 2 Sphinxes and the ability to reduce the cost of Sphinxes, or they get this land. And honestly, I'm not taking these cards. This is how good this land is right now. We're going to go ahead and take this land. And they separated into 2 piles, this Hydra deck did. Then we get to choose which piles we want to have in our hand, the other into our graveyard. We're going to take the Mystic Sanctuary, we'll play it, and we will put Time Warp back on top of our library. Now let's see what else we can do. We still have an extra turn, so let's go ahead and we need to keep doing something. So let's go ahead and attack with Warden of Evos Isle. We can't attack with Unesh, remember, it has Summoning Sickness. So we're going to attack the elf deck for another 3 damage, putting them down to 8. So they are really low, and hopefully low enough that we can do something about it, because it's possible, it's very likely that the next turn that elves get, if they get a full turn with all of the cards they have out right now, they're almost certainly going to win the game. So the Hydras get to go. They don't have anything untap. No upkeep, draw a card, Whip Silk, which would be a really good card if we had the land to be able to do stuff with it. So, let's go ahead and do this. Let's see, we will... I think let's go ahead and get a creature out so that we have some kind of a blocker. We're going to play Hungering Hydra. So Hungering Hydra is pretty cool. It has an X in its cost instead of the circles. Let's bring it up. It makes more sense if I just go and bring it up. So not Vastwood, Hungering Hydra. Okay, so let's... Oh, that's why. Let's go ahead and move it back up to the corner. That's the window that I messed up, so. Okay, Hungering Hydra. So you see in the top corner there, the top right corner, it has an X in its cost instead of a number. The reason that is because we get to choose what X is. And in this case, we are going to choose X equals 3. So that essentially its effect there, when it enters the battlefield, or it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So it gets to enter in with 3 counters because we paid 4 mana for that. We chose what X is. We said X equals 3. So that means that we pay 4 mana because it's 3 plus another green. And we get a 3/3 Hydra. So the other abilities that Hungering Hydra has is it can't be blocked by more than one creature. And whenever it is dealt damage, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. So it's a decent Hydra. It can, if it survives an attack, it gets stronger. So we can hopefully, the elf deck, hopefully there'll be a, well, I don't know. We'll see. We're kind of in a pinch here. We can't really do anything else to help, unfortunately. So we're just going to go ahead and Hungering Hydra, pass the turn over to the zombie deck, and we'll see what the zombies can manage to do this turn. Hopefully something to be able to stop these ridiculous elves over there. So untap, upkeep, draw a card, and we drew Death Baron, so that's not too bad if it was like 3 turns ago. Untap, upkeep, untap, upkeep, draw, we already did that. Let's see what else we can do here, because I'm thinking that... I'm not 100% confident on what we want to do. We are in a lot of trouble. So... let's see. Let's go ahead and I think we're going to just have to do what we can. So we're going to pay 3 mana. We're going to play Death Baron. So skeletons you control and other zombies you control get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. So Death Touch means that any amount of damage is usable to kill a creature. So it means that if we had a 1/1, we could use it to destroy that or kill the element that's that 14/14 elemental. So let's go ahead and pay 5 mana here, and we will play Custody-Lick. So when it enters the battlefield, we become the Monarch. Ooh, what is the Monarch? Well, the Monarch is an effect that's going to last for the rest of the game. So whoever is the Monarch at the end of the turn, the Monarch gets to draw a card. And then if you are attacked and dealt combat damage, you lose the Monarch, and the person that attacked you becomes the new Monarch. Right here, there we go. Got a little crown. Custody-Lick has another ability. Whenever you become the Monarch, target player sacrifices a creature. So we are going to have the elf deck sacrifice a creature. And let's see. Let's go ahead and spin around here and look at the elves that we have. I think maybe we sacrifice this Dwinen's Elite. We'll go and put it into the graveyard. We had to sacrifice it. We still have... oh, wait. We don't have any mana. That's all that we could do. Oh, man. Maybe we didn't want to do that. Maybe we didn't want to play Death Baron. So let's go ahead and untap. We'll because we do have a little bit other stuff to do here. So we want to pay a black, tap Ghoul-Caller Gissa to sacrifice Custody-Lick, and create 4 zombies because its power and toughness is... well, its power is 4. Yeah, so we get 4 zombies to go onto the battlefield. And hopefully that means that we can... we can maybe do something. That's what I wanted to do. And because a zombie died, each opponent loses a life. So the Hydras are down to 13. The Sphinxes are down to 16, and the Elves are down to 7. So this is definitely going... Oh, man, so close. We will activate Liliana the Dark Realm, get another Swamp, just in case. I don't think it'll matter too much, but it is what it is. We have a Azuri to look forward to, unfortunately. So, do this. Okay, I shuffled enough. Let's go ahead and put this Swamp into our hand. We already played a Swamp, that's why we can't play another one this turn. I think that's all we can do, unfortunately. If we could have only had maybe one other effect, that if we had like Buried Alive, then that may have been enough to be able to do something. But unfortunately, I think that this is all we can do. We're just going to have to pass the turn and see what if the elf deck can take down everybody this turn. So elves are going to untap, upkeep, draw a card, and it is a forest, so that's not too bad. Let's go and play that forest. We are going to, let's see, let's pay 1-2. We will play this Moltali's Acolyte. It's a 2-cost 2/1 elf with Echo, so Echo just means that at the beginning of our next turn, we have to repay that cost or sacrifice it. And it also has, when it comes into play, we draw a card. So we're going to draw a card from Beast Whisperer, Guardian Project, wow. Then we draw a card from Moltali's Acolyte, which is a forest. And then we get to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. So let's go and switch it up here. Let's go and put a +1/+1 counter on an elf. Let's put it right here. Then let's pay 3 more mana to... Let's go ahead and get started with the end game here. We're going to cast Azuri, Renegade Leader, which means that we draw a card from Beast Whisperer. It's Masked Admirers. Then we put another +1/+1 counter on a creature. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's put it on Beast Whisperer. Okay, so here it is. We are going to tap Elvish Archdruid for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. 9 mana. Then we are going to tap 2 mana here. Well, we're going to tap 1 mana, this one, in order to activate Wirewood Lodge, untap target elf. We are going to untap Elvish Archdruid to tap it again for 9 more mana. So we have 18 mana to do things with. 18. Let's see what kind of nonsense we can get into. Okay, so if we have 18 mana, that means we can activate Azuri Renegade Leader's ability 3 times for 15 mana. And that means that each creature that we get, each elf we control will get +9/+9 and trample. So how much damage is that? Well, let's first see who we can defeat just with these numbers. Let's look at the life totals, because the zombies do have some shenanigans. The Sphinxes and the Hydras probably don't. So we need to be able to do 29 damage with some of this stuff. So let's see. Let's move some of these guys over a little bit so we can get a better look at what we have. And is there anything else that we can play? No, it doesn't really look like it. We don't... Too many of our other cards cost too much mana, and we really need to attack with everything that we've got. Okay. So, essentially 2 elves and 2 elves each. So if we do two here, then that... Man, let me think about this. Because they do have one block. They have Unesh as a 5/5, so they can block 5 of our damage. But maybe we just bring them down so low that it won't matter what they play. I don't know. I think we want to make sure to finish off the Sphinx deck and leave it up to the Hydras and us. So, if we do that, the Hydra deck. No, wait, the Sphinx deck. So 5 damage total. Let's see. If this is 13 damage right here. Or no, wait, let's see. Hang on a second. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 9. So 14 damage right here. Just this one card. This is 14 damage. Blocking it means 9 damage gets through, which means that we need to deal another 7. So we can do these 2 against the Sphinx deck and finish them off. Let's see. The zombies have so many creatures, though. Oh, and they drew a card at the end of the turn. Oh, it's just another land. Okay, so we do need to get through the we need to get 1 damage through the zombies. They're going to have to block with everything to be able to stop that. How much can they block? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13. They can block 13 damage with the creatures that they have. And then they can technically bring out Custodialic and make a sacrifice a creature, but we're not too concerned about that. And they don't really want to do that because then that makes the Sphinxes even more vulnerable, as well as the Hydras. So let's see. They can block 13. This is 7 or 14 right there. So that's 1 damage through no matter what. Let me look. This actually may be end game because there's nothing in their graveyard that can stop us from dealing all of that damage. From dealing enough with just this one guy. So unless they have something in their hand, but we would essentially take out all of their zombies next turn. So they have to do something crazy to be able to bring them all back. Okay, so I think that does... Let's go ahead and attack with these 2 creatures, and we'll attack with these 3 against the Hydras, which should be enough because they're each... I mean, that's 18 damage with just these 3, not including their power, their additional power and toughness from the Hall of Triumph and their base power and toughness. So, yeah, I think this is game. Let me make sure. So the zombies don't have any responses whatsoever. They can't play anything. They can bring back another creature, but they can only do that after they declare blockers. So that doesn't help them. They're definitely out. The Sphinxes don't have anything either. They don't have any instant speed cards to do something. And the Hydras are definitely behind as well. Wow, that's it. There you go. The elf deck won just by the skin of their teeth, so to speak. That was a very close game. I mean, look, we're 13, 1, 7, and 16. So everybody was really, really close. It's just that the Elves were able to get just enough momentum, just enough tempo with their cards working together to be able to do something. It also helped that the Hydra deck didn't draw any... Wow, they were really not seeing any land anytime soon. And the Sphinx deck was probably going to draw into more land. Yeah, there's another land there soon. So it's really just the Hydra deck again getting really unlucky for some reason. This is really cool though. I really like doing this. Let's see. I don't know that I necessarily have a deck that we can just pull out and take a look at. I don't know if anybody's watching. If you have any questions, you're certainly welcome to ask and we can see. But if not, I think that maybe I'll just go ahead and start cleaning up and we'll call it a day. And thank you all for watching. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I can start cleaning up and kind of wait to see if any questions appear. I'm not sure what we'll do next. I need to take account of which decks have been played more than others to see if there is a deck, one of these beginner decks that needs to be played a little bit more. I don't always want to do the 4-player games. I think they make it a little bit more even all the way around, but they still end up being pretty even regardless. Regardless of whether there's three of these decks or 4 of these decks. So I don't know that either one necessarily I should do more of, whether it's a 3-player game or a 4-player game. I'm not going to do 2-player games. I don't know that it necessarily has as much value since so much of this is really dependent on these decks kind of all interacting at once. None of these decks were necessarily meant to be. None of these decks were necessarily meant to be played separately, you know. Am I going to post my last stream on live? Yes, I have it. I have it downloaded. I just didn't get around to it yesterday. So my plan is actually today to upload this stream and yesterday's stream. So I'm just lazy. That's all it is. But it'll be there. It'll be available. Let's see. Yeah, I'm doing, what that's in reference to is I'm doing some gaming streams every so often, mostly on Saturday mornings for a little while. So right now we're playing Earthbound. So if you really want to tune in for that, that's what we're kind of playing. I think I don't know. I haven't decided yet if I want to keep doing that or kind of do variety games. It's just kind of how it's going. So. Oh, by the time you could get on, it was over. Yeah, I was wondering about that. If it was you were just too busy at the time when I was going, which is fine. That's no big deal. But yeah, I'm kind of doing that for people wondering. Doing a third stream, so the Sundays and the Wednesday/Thursday streams, they will all stay the same. It's just a matter of whether or not I play on Saturday or if I decide some other evening to play or something like that. So, but yeah, let's see. I do want to play other games at some point. It's just that Earthbound is my favorite game, and that's what I started with. So I'm gonna keep playing it because it's my favorite. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what other games that we have. Yeah, working on projects. I get you. Let me think. Let me look at my desktop for a second because no, that's not what I want. Oh, is it going to actually? Please don't open anything. Yeah, we have Dead at Night. We could do more. Could do more World of Horror. I do have Teardown, but I've been trying to finish that. I don't know if I'm going to get it finished or when I'm going to get it finished. I've been just playing it in my spare time. I do want to do BattleTech, but I don't think that that's going to be something I do online. I think it'll be something I just record. I have a bunch of other games I do want to replay God of War, and I do have Dark Souls 2 that I could play. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't decided. I guess with that being said, I'm about finished up picking up, so let's go and call it for the day. Thank you all for watching, and it's too hot for projects right now. Yeah, it's definitely too hot. Too hot to go outside at all. Although if I could tempt you to come over, then it would be you'd have some ice cream to eat, of course. So we have some more ice cream now. All right, well, I'm going to call the stream. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Yeah, have a good one.